Hello everyone, welcome back to the Talos Principle Reawakened. Last time we went into 4 and a bunch of stuff, and what is this? And today we're going to check out what that is, and we unlocked our tools. So we will go into the end. Oh right, I turned on developer commentary. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to hop into World 1 and check out the developer commentary. Totally forgot about that. You guys made me aware of this on episode 1. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That'll make this much more interesting. I doubt they're hidden, right? Well, maybe they are. Secret Easter eggs for dev stuff. We have to visit the secret world too. Hop all the way back to the beginning. Let's see the cool stuff. We'll skip that one for now. We'll listen to them in order. Can I pass by you without triggering? Nope. Okay. We'll start with, what? We get to choose it. All right.
So I don't actually remember who came up with the idea for the QR codes, which the iterations used to communicate with each other. Tom wrote most of these. I did write some of them. I think one of my contributions is the character whose name is the @ symbol. He's an explorer, and the name is actually a reference to the player character in old roguelikes, who used to be, in the shape of an @ the player character. So the other iterations of the AI are another part of sort of a big theme in the game, which is our place as individuals in the history of humanity. Because our lives are short, and they form a step in the greater story, but sometimes just a very small one. Not every life does something amazing, but it still forms a part in the chain. And that's a very frightening thought, the way that, you are just this tiny, tiny part of something very, very big, but at the same time, it can be a source of meaning. So the other iterations, they haven't reached freedom, right? They did not accomplish their ultimate goal. They lived only so that one day you could succeed. It's not a very kind of easy fate to live with. Some of them we see have managed to experience moments of beauty inside this kind of confusing thing, just as we, experience beauty in our lives and in places, while at the same time we're these biological organisms that replicate and just are part of this big chain. So in a way, their history really is the history of us human beings reflected back at us. And yeah, you and I, everyone, we're all part of exactly that sort of chain, and we are going to make our choices in the present, and then we're going to die, and other people will follow and live with the choices that we made, and so on. So learning to live with the good side of that and the bad side of that, to confront it, but still maintain faith in humanity, is something that we kind of have to strive for. That's very difficult, but very necessary. And I think for Alexandra Drennan, her greatest triumph is not even that the project succeeds, although to her as a character that's the most important, but to me, what's most important about her is that at the end, despite everything that she's experienced, despite being very aware of, all that and kind of dying, she can still look back at her experience as an individual bit of that great chain and say it was good to be human.
Oh, heck yeah. And, yeah, again, spoiler warning. So that is the main idea that you discover at the very end of the game. So, we found our way over to here, to the star. There's a locked door, which means there's a jammer somewhere, which is good news, because I want to go back and, there's probably some dev commentary at the very beginning as well. So, I remember this switch in my first playthrough. Oh, I just flipped it. Where is it? I'm still past it. This switch. Off camera, I ran around the entire thing, and this was 4 years ago, mashing my face into every wall, and I went like this. And I didn't see it. If I had been going this way, I would have found it. Okay, well now I'm gonna run around until I find a jammer outside somewhere. so that we can go back to the beginning and hear the devlog from the beginning, which there probably is one, because I wouldn't want to skip that. Alright, well, I guess we can listen to these others while I search for it.
Hi, I'm Jonas. I'm one of the writers of the game, along with Tom Joubert. I was an indie game developer before I joined Croteam. I was making indie games quite a long time before even the term indie games really existed.
So you will claim everything. Playthrough on this channel.
2003, 2004, I made a game called The Infinite Ocean, which was a game about artificial intelligence, which kind of took a positive view of the possibilities of artificial intelligence and kind of a humanist view, and explored the concept from kind of a philosophical angle. And I released that, and then years passed, and around 2010, I remade that as a Flash game. For modern audiences, that's something like a cave painting. So Tom Joubert played that Flash game and really liked it. He was also writing games at the time, and he contacted me. We talked a little bit. We had kind of similar interests in video game writing. And then time went on, and Croteam had played a game that Tom had worked on, The Swapper, and they were looking for a writer who could bring a kind of philosophical angle to the game that they were making that was untitled at the time. And Tom thought this project is too big for just one person, and so he suggested that I could join, and he reached out to me, and I was already a fan of Croteam, so I was like, yes, of course. And Croteam, some people from Croteam played The Infinite Ocean. They thought, okay, this is actually pretty interesting, pretty close to what we're doing. And so I ended up joining the team.
Cool. I'll have to see if... because I thought all of his other games were text adventures. See, Will Claim Everything was a very fun, like, crayon-drawn or colored pencil-drawn experience. Yeah, I thought all of his other games were text adventures. Oh! There's nothing back here. Okay. Alright, well, good to know. And we got our jammers back. I remembered from the previous playthrough... oh, here it is. That there was a ladder. Or I thought I remembered, so that's why I looked for it.
The Talos Principle is the game that we never planned to make. It was born as a happy accident, actually. So, this is how it goes. Back in the days, we were working on Sirius Sam, and I was, as a lead designer, responsible for inventing the system, how to, do the gating, like how to protect the doors so the players would not be able to reach the next area. But I kind of didn't want to overly use an unpopular blue key, blue door thing. So I tried to invent something that is a little bit more interesting, but with the same functionality. And I was thinking, okay, so we have like this war-torn city, and there are like floating mines, protecting some streets and turrets, and we have these plasma walls protecting, some passages and stuff like that. So, well, it would be really nice if you could have a device that you could, just move around, and for example, you could put it behind some bars, then find a key that would unlock those bars, then you took this EMP device, move it somewhere, and I don't know, just jam the electronics of the door or the turret or the mine. So this way you would be able, to pass through this street, and actually the gating would work. And I was really delighted. I remember, when this is something really, really cool. And when I get to the office, I share that with the guys. We kind of agreed that I would do the prototype, the code functionality for it. I did that, and with our lead gameplay designer, Davor Tome, we agreed that he himself and I will do like series of little test levels, so just to test if it's if it's interesting, if it's too difficult, and what actually appropriate difficulty it would be for Sirius and players so we could put it into the game. And I made something like 20 levels, maybe a few more, but Tome made 15, And I was doing like just, 18 really easy ones, maybe few medium difficulty ones. But Tom actually created 5 or more that are really, really spicy difficulty one. Like hard to solve. It's not easy at all. It's not appropriate for Serious Sam, no way. But then, we just went out and give those levels, for our teammates. Go and test out and, tell us what you think about it. And it was really surprising when we find out that those, the most difficult puzzles were like really, really enjoyable for the players. But then again, those were not fitting for Serious Sam. No way. Like, no, they're too hard. People would hate that in Serious Sam. So we started thinking what to do with that, feedback. Yeah, we started thinking about maybe adding some other functionality and all. But, this is the way how the seed for the Talos Principle was planted by this happy accident.
That's incredible, right? Because if they had just made another Serious Sam with some puzzles, I would never have played their games. The Talos Principle, like, this is a masterpiece. Serious Sam, like, they made their company on Serious Sam, and maybe some other stuff, but that's like their main series, right? But then the Talos Principle is the one that went off to become a masterpiece. I don't know. I'd be interested to know, like, popularity and sales, like comparing Serious Sam games with Talos Principle games.
Hello, my name is Thomas Joubert, and I was one of the 2 narrative designers on the game before you. I was primarily responsible for writing Milton, as well as top-level plot design, and a bunch of the graffitis that you find around the game. So the basic structure of these commentaries is I'm going to say a bit about particular Milton dialogues and the kind of philosophy and design behind them. But I'm going to start by digging out some of the original emails that I exchanged with Croteam back in 2013, September 2013. Because there's some really cool like DNA of the game and the project in those emails that I think is quite interesting to see behind the scenes on. So here we go. So the first email was from Alan Ladovac, who was one of the 2 leads on the game, along with Davor Hunsky, and I'll quote you the first thing he ever said to me about the game. He wrote to me and he said, "Hello, my name is Alan, and I work at Croteam, an indie game developer based in Croatia. You might perhaps have heard of our game series, Serious Sam, or maybe not." And then he goes on, "We've seen your work on FTL, Swapper, and Irrational." Irrational was like a little text-based philosophical logic game I did. And he says, "We like what you did on those projects, and word is you work with indies, so we thought you might be the right person for a little something we are brewing." So, like, 2 things strike me about this email. One is, like, this is, I think, like, it's about 14 months before we released the game, and I think they've been working on it for about 2 years before this. So it's real late in the day to be approaching writers on a game. It did work out. But like, looking back, I rather miss the days when we wrote an entire game in 1 year instead of the sort of 3-year nightmare jobs that we have today. Not that I should complain. It was really the first time, I think, that anyone contacted me saying, "Hey, we played your games before, and we really like what you do. Give us that. Do what you did on those."
That would be a dream, wouldn't it?
And that's really nice. Instead of me kind of coming on and trying to be a bit corporate and then slowly bringing things around the kind of thing I want to write, this was a really nice change. And the fact that he's like, you may have heard of us. Like, I grew up in the 90s playing Serious Sam. Like, it was very cool to get this contact. But I was like a little bit like, what are the Serious Sam guys gonna have for me that's interesting? I'm not sure this is my area. But I replied saying, show me what you got.
And we are so glad that he did.
During our on-site photo sessions that we took
Oh, hey,
in
it's this
Italy,
world, literally.
France, Egypt, and Croatia, we went out and captured tens of thousands of images of walls, statues, stones, and various real-life objects, all with the goal of later transforming those photos into highly detailed 3D models through a technique called photogrammetry. Us being pioneers of this technique, we early recognized its potential to deliver unparalleled detail and realism. Actually, the technique is able to use many photos of an object and then extract precise geometry and also generate seamlessly aligned textures from the captured photos. By using this technique, we were able to generate high visual fidelity in our in-game models. And we feel that this dedication to detail added depth to the environments and increased the immersiveness of the game's world.
Yeah, incredible. I mean, it really does feel like ruins, but not actually ruins, but like a world that's meant to be like ruins, but there wasn't actually anything here. So they did a great job. Alright, yeah, so this episode is going to be a lot of that. Maybe we'll get to some puzzles a little later. Yeah, for me, the puzzles are just busy work, while the talking and the philosophizing happens. Because I've already beat this game, of course.
The game's main and probably only gating system uses colored tetrominos with different shapes and then arrangers or tetromino locks to unlock the areas and devices. It's a pretty complicated system, you know. It uses many variables that needed to be taken into account because it has many interdependencies, because it needs to account for colors, shapes, and especially for the redundancy. What that means? Redundancy means that we'd like people to have a choice if they're not able to solve one red L puzzle, to be able to find another available puzzle that is also, you know, results in a red L. So they would be able to choose. If they're not able to solve one, they would have another available. So we wanted to maximize this redundancy. And then Alan sits down, Alan, who was our lead programmer at that time, and he has developed this really neat system that would check that all of the requirements are met, and that would result in a list of required tetromino shapes and colors. And once we had that, we took out the blue cardboard and scissors and cut out the shapes from cardboard.
So you start with the solutions.
Them over the paper grids of appropriate size. So, you know, we were playing with that and trying to find out some interesting puzzles and arrangements of those tetrominos on the paper. Once we were satisfied with that, we took a photo of the setup and then recreated it in the game, and then of course went for playtesting and see how they would felt, and it was pretty unexpected results. Some puzzles that felt really simple were giving a headache to some of the players, so kind of scrapped those and opted for more simple ones, because sometimes some people get really frustrated with not being able to solve tetromino locks.
Yeah. The one kind of puzzle that I don't like. They're not my favorite. I'm glad they didn't have them in the second game.
Once when we established the core gameplay mechanics, we set our course to create we started working on the puzzles. So Davor Tomicic, Marko Cepin and myself, we were the ones who created all the puzzles in the game. But interesting thing is that all of us took different means and approaches to puzzle creation. So Tome liked working, like in 3D, so he, sit down inside a Sirius editor and created puzzles directly in 3D. Marco sketched some of these ideas on a paper and just like to think this way. And I actually used my son's Legos and have something physical to mess around and play with on a kitchen table. And actually what I did was I created some of the early puzzles using Legos, and then when I was satisfied with how that would work, I took a picture and then I recreated it in 3D, and then I got to the testing phase. So each method and each of the creators' approach was quite a bit of different, and their personalities, our personalities, and our different ways of thinking actually contributed to the wide variety of puzzles. And each of us had our own style, and I think that's very, very appreciated, and it can be felt in the game.
Amazing. Something new?
Once we decided to replace the original QR hinting system with a puzzle solving token similar to the one that we used in Talos Principle 2, we needed to handle when to allow players to reach the first messenger island, and this way acquiring the messenger tokens and being able to for the hint system to actually work. But it was not appropriate for players immediately after exiting the first cluster and then reaching the temple for the first time. It was not actually good. It didn't feel well for players to be able to just go straight up to the messenger island, get to know those strange messages, would not know what is it all about, and also not being able to solve the freedom messenger, because that tower needed some complex mechanics that would open in the B world or C world actually. So that was kind of weird, and we tried to solve this problem, and we take a look a little bit at how the other two islands are, what they require and how they felt. We saw that the third island that was in the original game accessible from the medieval temple, from the church, we saw that it actually uses very simple Tetromino ranges, and that it requires only a connector mechanics to be unlocked for the messenger to be freed. So we decided to swap the first and the third messenger islands, and we got what we wanted. Actually, we wanted the players to get to the island only after all the mechanics needed to solve the messenger would be available, and it would not be like immediately in the game, and it would not even be too late in the game. So somewhere in the middle, around the middle of the first episode of the World A, players would be able to get tokens and help them solve some of the puzzles that they would have problems with later in the game. And we really thought that this is a good improvement compared to the first game.
Yeah, because the first game, didn't you need a bunch of stars to unlock Messenger Islands? Or am I misremembering? Because it's like, you have to do all kinds of super hard puzzles to get the things that let you get the hints to skip puzzles, so... I'm remembering that past the stars, there's also gray Tetromino puzzles. I don't know, I will get whatever ones I find, but I'm not going to commit to doing everything, just because I've already beat this game before.
So the character of Milton acts as a counterpoint to Elohim. You could say kind of blind faith versus blind doubt. Elohim clings to his faith, to the point that he cannot actually complete his task. His desire to maintain the thing that he has created and his own place in it makes it impossible for him to actually fulfill the task that was set for him. So he is failing in a way. And Milton, in another way, is so cynical that he cannot actually construct a coherent worldview or do anything or accomplish anything or even push for someone else to accomplish something. He is quite broken in his own way. They both are. So this is interesting because sometimes we get players who think that Milton is like the message of the game or the view of the writers. And it's very important to remember that Milton is a character, just like Elohim is a character, and he can be wrong about things, and he most likely is wrong about things just as Elohim is wrong about some things. But both of them at the same time have necessary insights. That's the thing where it's not two villains or two heroes. It's two characters who understand some things and don't understand other things, and they're both stuck. They're unable to synthesize doubt and faith, to question what they're surrounded by, but at the same time construct a set of beliefs that can be acted upon. they can't find something to fight for, really, because they're both stuck in their own ways. They can't transcend, and that is your role in this equation, to be that thing that essentially unites the elements and then transcends them into something new.
Yeah, that is a really good thing about character writing. You know, as a writer myself, to have characters that see part of the picture, but they have flaws, but other characters who don't have that flaw, but they have a different flaw, and they see a different part of the picture. And then the main character has to, you know, like in a story, in real life, all people are people. They all matter, and you can't say, oh, you exist for somebody else. But in a story, all of the characters exist for the main character, and they're contributing to the question of the main character. And it's like, well, what if this character is a person and they don't always contribute? Well, then they're not in that scene, right? They're off doing something else, being in their story.
In the first Roman part of the game, you may come across empty puzzle shells or blocked entrance doors to some puzzle areas. Those were not planned that way. Instead, they were once fully built functional puzzles. However, as we neared the end of development and approached the game's release, we felt that the Roman area was dragging on too long. We wanted players to progress more quickly to the Egyptian hub, where puzzles were more challenging and fun. Also, we wanted to introduce Elohim's tower dilemma, to go or not to go. With those two hooks in place, we were confident that very few players would stop playing at that point. So we went through puzzle selection once more and identified puzzles that didn't meaningfully enhance the player experience and decided to remove them. While we did remove some puzzles completely, fully deleting all of them and filling the void would have required a lot of time from our environment artist, time that we didn't have at that moment. Instead, we chose to simply close the entrances of those puzzles or turn them into ruins. In total, we probably removed more than a dozen puzzles. This process reminded us of an important rule. Game is not finished and perfect when there is nothing more to add, but when there is nothing more to remove from it.
Yeah, that's so true for writing a story too. By the way, I want to play these. I want to play them. Okay, so we found a star. We need a jammer to get out here. And then we know another star. There's oh, it might be the same one. There's a locked door somewhere. And I don't remember where the key is! I thought it was inside that one level, but apparently not. Anyway, let's find another commentary to listen to.
Alexandra Drennan was one of the first characters conceived for the game. She functions as a counterpoint to both Elohim and Milton. So, in her, the extreme skeptical thinking of Milton and the extreme faith of Elohim kind of meet and transcend each other. She's synthesis, sublation. She's not dogmatic, but she believes in humanity. So to me, she's really the heart of the game. She's the kind of universalist humanism that really is the best and most important legacy of the Enlightenment personified. And of course, she's inspired very strongly by Carl Sagan. Now, I didn't reread or rewatch anything by Carl Sagan before writing her, but I would not be surprised if there are like entire chunks of what she says that are really similar to things that Carl Sagan has written or said. I watched Cosmos on television when I was a young child, and there was such a foundational experience that it just kind of echoes in my mind since then. And I've also read a lot of his books, and all of that stuff has just kind of been absorbed, and then it kind of, you know, comes out again in this new form. Again, transformation of things into something else is the foundation of art. An interesting fact about the writing of Alexandra Drennan is that she was rewritten after Aaron Fitzgerald was cast. So the initial version of the character was older, and it didn't fit Aaron's voice. And Aaron was really good, and she brought something interesting to the character. And instead of trying to force her to perform it differently or just finding someone else, what I did is I rewrote the character for her, changed the character's background and everything, and that really made her come alive. And Aaron just really did an amazing job with that character, and that's, to me, the collaboration with Aaron in creating Alexandra and then Athena is really one of the highlights of my career. I directed the recording session, the final recording session for Alexandra Drennan, and when you get to those last moments, they're very emotional. That was exactly as emotional to listen to, and it was very, very powerful, and it was very hard to ask her for a second take, but you have to do a second take for safety. And personally, I do not care about awards or anything like that very much, but I do kind of wish that Erin's work really had been acknowledged by the industry in some form, because she did something really amazing. This is really high caliber acting, and I wish it was recognized.
Oh, I agree. Very, very good acting job. Alright, was that all of them? Do we see any more? Little peninsula out here. So I've been running around, obviously looking for the key, unable to find it. And so I will probably drop this one. I don't know, maybe at the end I'll look up how to get all the stars and get to the new puzzles and... oh yeah, here we go.
So when Tom and I joined the project, the design of the game mostly existed, meaning the levels were there, not in their final form, but they were there, and most of the puzzles were there as well. I remember them saying, we think that there should be some kind of tower, there will be a central tower. I think it kind of existed, but they didn't really know what it was or what it was going to look like exactly. It was still all a bit rough. Croteam already had some notions of what the game should be about. So from the beginning, it was like, we want to do something about artificial intelligence and kind of independence of thought. But it was all kind of vague and just they had a certain ambition. They wanted to make an intelligent game, but it wasn't, worked out yet. So one of the first things that we did is Tom and I started working on some pitches. The pitch that got picked eventually is the one that I created, which is the story that you've played, more or less. I wish I remembered exactly what the other pitch was that we had. I think we might have had more than two, but I think there were two main ones. I remember something like an abandoned digital encyclopedia, sort of Microsoft Encarta, if anyone from the Stone Ages remembers that. And I, of course, had the biblical pitch because that's kind of the sort of thing that I'm interested in. But quite a lot still changed. Like once that got picked, there were still a lot of changes to how precisely it played out. But the main sort of idea of a retelling of the Garden of Eden story from a humanist angle, that stayed and really became the defining characteristic of the original Talos Principle.
Kind of incredible. I didn't expect to find these inside puzzles. Uh-oh. You guys will have to tell me if I missed any in World 1, or in any of these worlds.
Before we even knew we will be doing Talos Principle project, we were working on new gameplay mechanics for our next Serious Sam game. We wanted some obstacles that would challenge players and prevent them from progressing too easily. In those initial prototypes, we introduced obstacles like exploding mines, turrets and plasma doors, and created a jammer device to disable them. Those early puzzles were more kinetic, focusing on avoiding obstacles and exploring the environment. Some of those prototypes eventually made their way into the game as some of the early puzzles of Talos Principle. We even had puzzles where players had to navigate through the fields of moving, exploding mines. I actually enjoyed those. They reminded me of the early arcade games I grew up with, which were all about dexterity and flow. Ultimately, we decided to transition to logic-based puzzles, as early testing revealed that players found them far more enjoyable. And I'm happy we made a choice.
Yep, so am I. And then they took them out completely in Talos 2. I wonder if this might be where the key is, because there's like wait, no, this is... Oh, because it's Labyrinth. I'm just gonna check this puzzle real quick. Or hidden ladders or keys or whatnot. Oh, oh. Da, 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 da. And this would be the end, right? I found it! Yeah! I did it! And of course you can't take the tools over ladders or outside. Alright, now time to figure out where that locked door was. There it is. Alright, now time to find out where the barrier was. It's a building that you like go inside and then turn around. I think I remember searching high and low for it forever, but then like memorizing where to go when you log in. It's just like you turn and you go straight or something like that. And it's really easy to find if you know where you're going. But if you don't, yep, I don't know where this is, so it's time to pixel hunt. Unless it's right here. Nope. Could be behind. Man, now I'm curious about these puzzles. Do they put them in anywhere? Can I play them? Are they from the new DLC? Or the new content or whatever? Where is it? I think it's closer to the center, if I remember. Like, you can just literally like walk off and go straight and find it. Ah. Oh, here it is. Yeah, it's right by the center. All right, star acquired. Audios listened. So you can tell which ones you've listened to before because these are dark. They'll be lit up if you haven't listened to them before. Okay, World 3. Yeah, I might just look up what numbers to click here because I really don't want to. Don't want to solve this one again. Like you gotta use a hex code.
Alan got back to me like the very same day at 9:35 at night with a 20-paragraph email explaining everything about the game. I won't read all of it. He spends like the first 4 or 5 paragraphs explaining more or less what the game is. When they came to me, they had quite a lot of the game designed, probably 2/3 of the puzzles designed, most of the mechanics, most of the visuals was there, and not very much changed in the game itself from when I came on. Now that's been the case on pretty much every game I ever worked on. To be honest, most games when I come on, they have a game already. I mean, actually the project I'm on at the moment is kind of a crapshoot in terms of there was nothing at all existing when I came on, and that's great because everything's up for grabs, but also it really helps to be able to sit down on day one and play a demo and see exactly what the game is. Then he goes on to the story, and I'll quote in full. It says, the last but very important piece still missing is the story. Of course, we didn't just come up with all this without how does this even fit in ever popping into our minds. Right from the start, we knew that we didn't want to compromise the gameplay or visuals. We were aware that the combination of all that we planned makes totally no sense in the real world. You're putting boxes on pressure plates and connecting energy beams through diamonds to open sci-fi doors in ancient Roman ruins to pick up Tetris pieces, and, I mean, I guess by now you think, can I have some of what you're smoking, right? And he says, so our idea from the start was to present this as a simulation that you are playing, kind of like VR. We would put some clues, like some objects rarely glitching visually, like bad holograms that would give out that what you see is not real. The point would be that at the end of the game, to reach the last level where you can see your real self sitting in a VR chair, and when you as an avatar turn off the simulation computer you wake up in your real self, stand up, and continue in the real world. We wanted to try playing the story on the what is reality card, but it didn't feel like that gives us enough space for nice story development, and didn't have much ideas on what you can talk about during the game. What we finally came up with is something we feel would work really well. Player would see himself as a robot, e.g. having robotic hands in first person, but due to the glitches it would be obvious that the whole thing itself is a simulation. You can figure out that the robot thing is probably just an avatar, and you will suppose you are in fact a human. But can you be sure? What we'd like to play on here would be an identity crisis. Am I a real live human being, or am I an AI programmed to think it's human? Kind of like the ponderings of some characters in Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep. Also, what are you doing there? Possibly you're being tested by programmers that created you. And how do you get out of the simulation? Ultimately, obviously, by solving the puzzles. But then we can have weird things and recursive loops at the end of the game when you do. Now, in a world like this, it can be a bit hard to come up with means to convey the narrative to the player. But we think we got some rather usable ideas. Firstly, we would use graffiti-like writings on the walls around the game levels. Those writings could bring the feeling that others were playing this same thing before you. Were they your previous lives, other AIs, other people? They're perhaps in different stages of confusion and despair, and it can show in their writings. Second, we'd like to give you opportunity to chat with a person or persons through various computer terminals scattered around the game. You don't know who they are. They could sound like AIs or perhaps like people. Perhaps they are programmers who are testing you. Each such discussion would be kind of like a dialogue tree, where you'd pick a line and the computer would reply and repeat that a few times until a small closure. We thought that it would be a good idea to pose those persons as psychoanalysts. Specifically, they would dodge your questions by asking counter-questions like psychologists do. And then he gives an example of some of that dialogue. It says, player, who am I? Terminal, who do you think you are? Player, I don't know. Am I a robot? Terminal, what makes you think you're a robot? Player, my hands are made of steel. Terminal, that's a compelling argument for that theory. And then he closes by saying, so the main point here is to entice the player to start an internal discussion and introspection in his mind about various things. Like, what defines a human? If an AI can think the same as a human, should that AI have the same rights as a human? Morality of treating sentient AIs like just computer programs, etc. We figure that in order to do something like that, it is crucial to have players say it himself. Just having the player's characters say it would not bring much emotion into it. But if we make it into a dialogue tree, where he has to choose which question to ask, then it is his own discussion and he cannot avoid participating emotionally. So that was Croteam's big story plan that they pitched to me when I came on board. And for my thoughts on that, tune in to the next one.
Alright, nice. You said a lot of things, and I had thoughts about them, and then I forgot what they were, because I kept going and going and going. But it's great. It's very great. Was it this one? Yeah.
In the original game, we had a hinting system using the QR codes. So what player could do? Player could go to the messenger island, solve several Tetromino Rangers and unlock the messenger, free the messenger, and then later in some of the puzzles he would be able to call in the messenger. So he would write him down a QR code, like a bunch of text, several lines, that would try to, using the text, describe what player should be doing. So like, the textual hint that will help players to solve this puzzle. Well, in more than few occasions, it's really hard for us to write those texts. because because of the spatial nature of the puzzles that we in those labyrinths, you need spatial awareness, how to where to position what to see some very specific angle and stuff like that. So that was extremely hard to describe using the words, and just people were pretty dissatisfied with doing so much and putting some significant effort into freeing the messenger, and then just getting some unhelpful hint that would actually not be helpful at all. So in the Reawakened, we switched to the free pass token, the system that we used in the Talos Principle 2, where you could exchange the token. You could find the tokens scattered around the puzzle clusters, and you could exchange those tokens for the tetromino in the puzzle that you actually use it on the altar. So we were pretty certain that would be more beneficial and welcomed by the players, because it was really doing great for the Talos Principle 2, and we didn't want the players to feel the frustration from the original game.
Alright. So I was about to say I wish there was a pause button, but there might be. I'm going to test it now.
Hi, my name is Damian Maravunac.
Hey.
And I'm the composer and
Damian
sound designer
Maravunac.
at Croteam. What was it like working on the original Talos Principle?
Maravunac?
Previous to that game, we released many Serious Sam games. And those games featured very, very heavily rock-oriented and rhythmic-driven soundtrack, full of energy, beats, vibes. But for the Talos Principle, I wanted to do something completely different. I wanted players to have a very relaxing and very calm experience, which would not interfere with their thinking process. The core gameplay of Talos Principle is solving puzzles. So you want to work with that. So one of my choices was to not have rhythmic parts drive the music this time. So basically I tried to avoid having heavily pronounced rhythms or loops or anything like that. It's not like I completely avoided having percussion, but even when I used percussions, which you can hear mostly in Egyptian themed levels, I use them more as sound effects. They pop up here and there just to set the mood. As for the melodic parts, they're not so prominent. I always cherish very strong, prominent melody. I love to have some theme that you can whistle or sing to. But in Talos, I didn't want that. Because that way, when you don't have a prominent melody, the music can be played more often than usual, without fear of players being annoyed, or they needing to turn down the music because it loops constantly. So it's also a little bit of a trick to give your tracks more mileage. And one thing I also try to do is to avoid quantizing. So what is quantizing music? It means moving notes once you play an input notes, moving those notes to the predefined places on a grid. And this grid is made of bars and beats, which are musical terms. So by avoiding this quantization, the music just felt more humane and like it was really played live and not entered on a computer, which is how we composers compose music these days.
Oh, that's neat. Yeah, he also said in an interview that he likes Serious Sam music a lot more, and this music is hard for him. I'm gonna try something with this one.
I think that one of the most important aspects of game writing as a literary form is not interactivity, although that is foundational to how games work, but the fact that game writing is spatial, meaning it exists in three-dimensional space. So inside of a video game, text, meaning any kind of storytelling elements, text is spatially arranged. It's arranged in three-dimensional space. So for example, a video game is the only art form where you can talk to a character and then you can check out their bookshelf and read what books they're reading. And the content can be really, that content can exist in this particular way because of interactivity, but it's not just about choice, which sometimes things get reduced to, but about the ability to arrange text in these unique ways. So that creates, for Talos Principle, what we kind of call an archaeological structure, meaning there are layers of story that the player can experience. Some of them you're guaranteed to experience, so mainly Elohim, you're always going to experience no matter how you play. But then there's quite a few layers of story that require digging on the player's part. So if you think of the QR codes and the terminals as nodes of story, essentially, that are spread throughout the game, and they create a kind of web of information. And then Elohim is kind of a thread that follows you around because you can't avoid Elohim's story. And then there's Milton and Alexandra, who are two more kind of threads that form a continuous story, but they all kind of manifest differently inside the game space.
Yeah, there's so much that goes with it. Yeah, a game, I have said before, and I will say many times again, video games are the most powerful art form we have created. Some people say maybe VR will be more powerful one day, but I mean, VR is just a video game, right? When it comes to storytelling. And I remembered what I wanted to say about Carl Sagan. I don't actually know that much about. I haven't consumed Carl Sagan's work. I don't like the word consume, but like I haven't watched Contact. I didn't watch the original Cosmos. I watched the Neil deGrasse Tyson version. It is pretty amazing though, and you know, you see other influences in science-based and philosophy-based games like The Witness and Outer Wilds. Very Sagan influenced.
The terminals in the game play a crucial role in storytelling. They serve as a vehicle for the story. So it was very important for us to, you know, kind of encourage players to interact with the terminals and try to dig some hidden narrative treasures there. We wanted to signal, you know, whether the terminal's content has been fully explored or there is something new, and we needed a clear visual and audio cue for that. We achieved this with assigning almost irritating audio prompt and the ASCII animation of the blinking eye. So during one particularly creative night shift, I recorded a close-up of my eye blinking in a movie and extracted several frames, processed them in Photoshop, you know, converted them from the pixel art to ASCII, so it would be, you know, appropriate to the style of the terminal. And this ended up to a so-called Milton Eye. That animation became almost an iconic symbol for the game, and even made its way onto the back of our Talos Principle t-shirts.
Very nice.
Alexandra Drennan, the scientist that invented the simulation you're playing, is actually one of my favorite characters in the Talos Principle saga. And her recordings are very important for the story. And I wanted these recordings to feel glitched and warped, as if some sort of data loss or degradation had occurred through time. And I also wanted them to sound like they were recorded on an old analog equipment, like some sort of military-grade radio, so that would feel like a message was being sent to the player. So I added some static noise below the voice to give it this radio transmission vibe, and I also applied EQ curves and filtering what was the average human voice range and making it sound more like a broadcasted one.
Very good job. I mean, yeah, that's a thing. Like, I don't think about what it takes to make the sound in games sound like it does. Like this, I just kind of accept that that's what it sounds like. You know, the step, how would you make a sound like this? I mean, you could find something in real life that sounds like this and record it, but like, but that's not what game developers do or movie makers do. They make the sounds with computers. Well, I guess they do record sometimes, but like, I don't know. And just whenever I do pay attention to it, it's like, oh yeah, that does not sound like somebody talking into a professional microphone. It sounds like something else, or a broadcast system, or an intercom, or an old staticky vinyl record, you know. And yeah, I mean, for me, with my recording, I have OBS microphone filters on. I barely know what they do. I just like looked up on YouTube how to make Blue Yeti sound good on OBS and did exactly what they told me. There's numbers involved. There's there's noise. I know what noise cancellation is, but like compressor, expander, limiter, barely have any idea what that means. And then whenever something goes wrong with my audio, I don't know what to do. Like right now I have to be very, very close to the microphone, because if I'm even like half a foot, like right now, it clips off some of my words. So I don't know if you heard that, but I'm really close. Like it didn't used to do that. And I don't know what changed. Windows update? What do they do? So every so often I have to finagle the filters and the gain and try things to try and make myself sound good again. And I'm not perfectly satisfied with how I sound right now. I feel like my voice is a tiny bit echoey. But again, I am using a cheap Blue Yeti, not a professional microphone that many Let's Players and streamers use. Although plenty do use Blue Yeti, so.
After we have invented this jammer device and created the first set of puzzles and play tested them within the team, we know that it is really, we have something really interesting there. But we also knew that we needed more stuff. We needed additional devices to expand the gameplay. When we were thinking about it, we wanted to have something like that would mimic the dynamics of chess, where each piece, each figure has its own unique strengths and weaknesses. Especially weaknesses, these abilities actually allow some very interesting, almost endless strategic combinations. So we set up on a search. We started searching for some new, interesting gameplay elements. The breakthrough actually came with the introduction of connectors and the energy lines. And the idea struck me when I saw my son playing a very, very simple mobile game where the goal would be to connect differently colored dots through a maze. So there was a maze, you had like 2 red dots, 2 yellow dots and 2 blue dots, and you would connect them through the maze. It immediately occurred to me that if I would be able to put this concept in 3D, it could be really, really powerful. This is how we came up with the generators, the idea for the generators, receivers, and connectors. And since then, this has become the core element for most of the game's puzzles. We have tried many implementations and approaches to how to implement this, the connector. We even implemented the version where the connector would connect to all available sources, but it was really complicated and uncontrollable, and we discarded it pretty early. But once we have implemented the final version of connectors, we started to design puzzles with both connectors and jammers and plasma doors and whatnot. And we make like another set of 20-30 puzzles for our developers in team to play test. And that was really amazing. We knew that we were on something. The feedback was overwhelming, and the rest is actually history.
Yeah, I mean, extremely good device. I mean, well, this is where all the best puzzles come from, right? They've all got connectors and lasers. And then Talos Principle 2 DLC, where you've got like 3 of them in a row doing this clock thing and like making that one column said, pretty sure the lasers are Turing complete. So if you set them up right, you can make a computer and run Talos Principle on it.
We never really wanted to tell you how to use any of the mechanics. We wanted to skip the tutorials as much as possible, because they rob you of the discovery and exploration of the mechanics. The puzzles are tutorials, and they slowly teach you what is possible.
Hell yeah, all the best puzzle games operate that way. Maybe Steven Sausage Roll could have had a few more puzzles in between, rather than just being like, alright, you've learned sausages on top of each other, here's a stack of 16!
So one of the reasons that the game is structured in the particular way that it is because what we're aiming to create is a form of dialectical storytelling. So I've talked in a previous recording, you may or may not have heard, about nodes and webs and threads, and so that this is the way in which the information, the story content is really distributed throughout the world of the game in kind of small chunks and structures. And what that accomplishes is that all of these kind of interact with each other in the player's mind. So they all have connections, thematic, philosophical, and so on. And some of these are connections where they reinforce each other, and in some ways they also challenge each other or undermine each other. It's not so much that it's like a black and white pro and con. They kind of exist at an angle to each other that forces you to arrange them in your head and think about how these things fit together. And you as the player then have to think, and you have to accept some and reject others and kind of try to arrange them in your head in a way that makes sense. And ultimately, you should synthesize your own set of beliefs out of these. And that is something that is uniquely possible in the video game medium because it allows us to structure information in three-dimensional space in this particular way, and it's not linear as a novel would be, for example.
Yeah, and they did that really well. I feel like, kind of the tower ending does kind of feel like the intended true ending, but I also feel like they weren't too heavy-handed about it, right? Like if you get the faith ending, there's just one line that says independence check failed, but it's not like a bad ending, right? The simulation continues on. The next iteration of Athena is born. And then, the truest ending is not the one where you do all the puzzles. That's the messenger ending, which is like a super faith ending. And, I like that about this game.
In the spirit of the original great Croteam tradition, we have crafted this developer island and populated it with famous big head characters representing the Croteam developers, but this time they are having monitors with faces instead of heads. What we have here, what you can see here, is a diverse group of developers who contributed to both the original game and the game that you are currently playing, the Talos Principle Reawakened. As you explore the island, you will be able to see the developers performing some activities that hint at their specific roles within the team. All this experience should offer a glimpse into the creative processes that actually happen behind the scenes.
Yeah, thankful for it. Anything to say about these pillars? No? Alright, I guess I'll just run around a little bit to see if there's anything more here. Kinda doubt there is. Oh. Oh, we get to see their names. How did I never notice that? Here's Jonas. Oh yeah, I definitely recognize him. If I had just seen him, I would have recognized him. Error, invalid encoding. Yeah, and he was tapping away at the terminal. Alright, I think that is all of the developer commentaries. Like, I know I didn't go back to the secret secret terminal in one of the worlds, and I didn't look through all the puzzles in World 1. So, you guys can tell me if I missed any, if I should go back to those worlds. Yeah. So, I think it's time to go into World 7. We're jumping into 7. We're doing it backwards now that we can. I'm gonna get this blinking off my eyes. Well, it has to be. That has to be correct. because it is 4-wise symmetrical. There we go. It has 4-fold rotational symmetry, so the long bar is correct no matter which side it's on. Alright, any commentary? We'll save that for later. Time to go into World 7. No, time to look in here. Oh, we already looked in here. Yeah. Perfect timing with the music. Yeah, I didn't know that he didn't write it according to... Right, we already looked at all the QR codes and stuff. He didn't write it according to beats and measures. Just put it together. I mean, it sounds like it's got timing to it, right? I guess it doesn't.
So I came back to Alan and I asked all the practical questions that I always have to ask. You know, what state is the game in right now? What's the deadline? What kind of resources have we got? How much writing do you think it is? Are there any like animated characters, or is it all like text and radio stuff? All those sorts of things. And I also told him what I thought, which was, I thought this could be really fun and really cool. But I also wrote, I'll quote, the identity questions you raise are kind of similar to the ones I tackled in the Swapper, and I wouldn't want to retread old ground. This being said, if you guys are open to some adaptations, I think there are some interesting angles. For instance, if you were to take slightly Tron angle to the VR system you're exploring, i.e. text throughout the game relate to the system as a whole, explaining its function in some way, then the world can be a metaphor for just about any system you like. You could be exploring a political infrastructure and uncovering a conspiracy. You could be exploring a living AI brain slowly activating its personality circuits, though that sounds a bit GLaDOS. In fact, whatever happens, you should definitely check out, and this changed the entire course of the game. I said, whatever happens, you should definitely check out Infinite Ocean. It's a Myst-like adventure game which, frankly, tackles precisely the topics you're interested in a far more precise and subtle fashion than I think I ever could. And, of course, Infinite Ocean was the most recent release by one Jonas Kiratzis.
Kiratzis.
And here in Alan's reply, actually, I spoke too soon in the last section when I said Jonas brought everything himself, because actually this particular idea came from Croteam. Alan wrote, by the way, we got a few more ideas today. We thought that reaching the last part of the game, the Nexus Tower, could be presented differently. Maybe the person behind the terminals or the messages or even some voices, whatever we think works best, warns you that you must under no conditions ever go to the Nexus. We could try to present the thing the way Original Sin is presented. So think about it this way. You are an AI who is being tested for his mental capabilities, but you turn out to have also empathy and free will. It can appear as if the Nexus is the tree of life. You should listen and not go there, but you cannot resist the temptation. But in the end, is that really the will of the creator? I mean, did God put the tree there because he wanted to test Adam and Eve and their obedience? Or if having their own free will was actually the final test, whether they are ready for life in the real world? So perhaps this simulation is a world where AIs are tested for both mental abilities and free will. It may appear as if free will is a negative characteristic, but in the end, maybe you realize that is the point. All the previous AIs have failed because they obeyed. They were not human enough to succumb to temptation. And then he says, but seriously, if you come up with the idea that the player should be a dwarf in an enchanted castle trying to get out, whatever, as long as it works, okay? So we go on to shoot around some ideas back and forth. And one thing that sticks out to me is at one point I say, we should be careful with images like someone holding up a bright red rose. Cliche alert. And actually, I think the cat is better. And Alan replies saying, yeah, that's probably better. And a cat can be more interestingly made a central motif. It is live, moves and makes sounds. It's interactive and cute. We could make a cat in a cage the central point of the Nexus and the final goal. Now, this bloody cat idea. I mean, it was on all the posters, and it's marvelous. There was a lot of back and forth and ideas around how much the cat is in the game and how central to the game it is. But I'm glad it made it through in some shape or other. So after a bunch more back and forth, I come back with my proposal. I say what I'd like to suggest is this. I still think that Jonas Karatzis, who did Infinite Ocean, which I linked previously, would be perfect for this gig. He's based in Germany, so closer to you than I am, and I expect he would be up for it. What I wonder is whether you would be open to either taking on Jonas for the role, or if he was up for it, taking on both of us as a writing team. I've never worked with him personally, but based on his work alone, I couldn't think of anyone better. Now, that's probably the smartest thing I've ever written in my entire career. What was going through my mind at the time was, like, I've just done The Swapper, which is another abstract puzzle game with a philosophical narrative, and I really, at the time, I still do, I keep trying to do smaller things, more carefully crafted, minimalist things, and partly because I'm running ADHD and, like, my attention does not stick for long enough to do these big projects. So I was a bit nervous about taking on another big abstract philosophical puzzle game, and I wanted to share the load. And I had just played Jonas's game, and I really did think he'd be perfect. The rest, as they say, is history.
Well, I gotta see if Infinite Ocean still exists. 'Cause that sounds pretty cool. Alright, is there a way... I feel like this has gotta be how you do this. Can I move that one closer? This one's a challenger. Nope. Now, can I see this, like, all the way down here? Yeah. I'm glad that was a nice long audio log, because it feels like I was able to enjoy it while getting through solving this puzzle. I think I remember this one taking me some time the first time around. But you know, having solved it before does make it easier. Alright, where's the next audio? These are really cool.
So something that's pretty important to understand is that the Talos Principle is a work of art, not edutainment, however they call edutainment, as they used to call it. So, terrible term, I hate it. So art is, by its very nature, it's visionary, it's creative, and it's transformative, right? It tells truth, but it tells the truth in its own way. So it's not just here's a bunch of facts, then we're just trying to, you know, make you learn these facts. Rather, we transform things that are interesting in the world into a work of art. They're actually one of the inspirations are writers like Umberto Eco, you know, because what we're trying to do there is to create historically plausible but fictional characters and story elements on which we would build this tapestry that we're creating. So the biggest one of these probably is Straton, and the Talos Principle. So our fictional philosopher and his fictional philosophical principle. Materialist ideas, such as the Talos Principle, were really widespread in the classical world. They existed in really various forms, but for the purposes of our story, we needed a condensed version of these that's rooted in real-world mythology. The story of Talos, I grew up with that story in Greece. But it needs to be, you know, it needs to take a form that we can use in our game and in our story. So art isn't really just about boldly stating an idea. It's about taking ideas and exploring characters and various, story elements. But these are always transformative. They always take something and turn it into something else. Thus we get stratum. There are also some other very important fictional works inside of the story. There's the Book of the Scribe of Osiris, the Apocrypha of St. Edward, and Athena Reborn. So the Book of the Scribe of Osiris is a pretty good, I think, imitation of real ancient Egyptian texts, but again, transformed to suit our own purposes to kind of establish a lot of how Elohim sees the world, and also how the characters inside of this world understand their own journey. The Apocrypha are similar. They draw on real-world ideas that really do exist, even some ideas relating to mathematics and tetrominos and all that. But again, it becomes transformed into fiction and character for our own purposes. And then there's Athena Reborn, which is a fictional science fiction novel that kind of, if you read the summary, you'll see that it is a summary of the entire game in a way, a reflection of the themes of the game. But it also prefigures the events of Talos 2 and was intended to do that. That's also the name Athena and various references to that. So that is the name that your character will eventually take once they leave the simulation.
Cool. And now I'm stuck here. Gotta get these tools out. Yeah. Block you. Now I can get in. I don't know how I was supposed to get in, but that's how I'm doing it. Alright, so I don't need to block that one. I just need to block this one, I think. Because then I can... This is way out here. Oh! Oh, Oh, never mind. Here's how you're supposed to do it. From there. Okay, but now, since I have a box, now I'm supposed to do it this way. Yes! Yes! Not a cube. Let's be honest, it works the same. That's the achievement. Alright, so we gotta get a blue laser in here. So what I'm gonna do is... Oh. That's the backwards button. I'm gonna reset these puzzle items. So I don't have to go back through that door and get them. Although I probably didn't anyway, right? Because it's open. Oh. No, I'm an idiot. You have to... have to go through here to get the other one of these. Although you probably only need one connector. For the blue. Nope, I guess not. So let's take this and try not to restart any other puzzles. Put it in view of right there. And now try hopping over here to see if there's a blue laser in this one. Where's some more logs? I have read a message on a wall that speaks of a world of endless sand. I would like to make it far enough to see that. Yeah, we've already done all these things, I remember. But this might be the world with this secret terminal. Don't mind me, just running around the outside to check. Oh. No log there. Are there not a lot of logs in this world? Where was I going? This way? Locked from inside. Red laser, where was the blue laser? Maybe we need to shoot it from another one to here, and then from here to there. Do some of these puzzles feel kind of big? I feel like in Talos 2 they weren't this big. Another hint thing. I open this, no, that's the one that's locked from inside. Okay, let's try it from over here then. Just open whatever we can, get as many tools as we can. There's another... we can't see through there. Here's a blue. Get the green Tromino and then head out with the blue. Green means easy, right? There's a lot of connectors. Why do we need a... is there gonna be a red one in here? Oh, it's blue. Okay, so then we open this with blue, and then we shoot a red through it. So this is no longer necessary. Yeah, red. So this has to stay open with blue. So now, can we see... Oh, now we go this way? Yeah. Alright, and while I'm playing this, I'm trying to think of puzzle ideas for my custom campaign. One of you guys suggested I go to the community and see if anybody's making puzzles but needs a story for it. That's a really good idea. I'm just not good at finding communities. It scares me. Yeah. But yeah, that's definitely worth thinking about. Okay, can we... I want to get the blue out. Where's the door? Where is the door? Oh, it's right here. So... here's how we get the blue. That's not the place down button. Yeah. Let's go. I remember this one. This was one of the ones... I think this was the one where I realized you can shoot lasers through force fields. And it was such a wonderful moment. Is this just back to the... yeah. The blue screen. Pinhole windows. So one puzzle method is What's this connected to? It's opening that. One puzzle method is to be like, go back here. Or do you have to go over here? And find the
counsel of my blessed messengers must be earned.
Shut up. I didn't try to do anything with it. Like, where exactly do I have to put this to do the thing? Probably haven't read this one yet. These sigils are becoming harder to reach. I dread what the next temple holds in store. At the end, what? Eternal life? There's got to be another way. Sheep. What do we need first? This red thing. Maybe. I don't see a red source. There's a red source. Now find the one spot where we can see both of these things. Maybe I can't? Oh, there we go. Two. So, let's first see if we can reach this with one. If so, then we might want to use 2 for the red. Yeah, okay. We can, but only if we cross this, which means we want to put this here. And then we want to not... We want to go around it with the other 2. And I feel like this one also probably took me a while. The first time. Yay! No! Okay, I'm fine. Just put this one right up there. No. Yay, yay. No. Huh. These. No. No. How about now? No. What? Maybe I have to be closer. No. Did that do it? There we go. There's definitely enough space. That's why they call it pinhole. Pinhole windows. Okay, we got one more left. Do we have any other stars, or is that all the stars? That's the only star. Hey, there's a beep boop. Attention, you have received a reply to your user support ticket. Display reply? No. Arg! Basic account. Sorry, your query was not recognized. Have you completed the standard troubleshooting procedures? Deleting existing user account. Create a new admin account. Email network administrator. Let's delete our account. User profile deleted. Let's do it again. No user profile detected. A new admin account. In order to prevent unauthorized access to admin controls, only persons may sign up for new admin accounts. This will now conduct error. User has no registered account, but certification data already exists. Would you like to undertake the certification process to achieve a preferable outcome? Yeah, I think I tried this before. Your issues with denial will be appended to your user profile. Further attempts to overwrite certification results will be logged. You will receive a notification if your attention is required. Yeah, I thought that. I don't get to try emailing. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think they would go through the same questions again. You know, some things like solving puzzles again, that makes sense for a video game, right? But doing a character evaluation thing, so you want to retry your character evaluation to get a better score? It's like, what? No, that's not how it works. That's not what it does. Okay. We know how this works. This is a clever puzzle intro. Now we don't need that one. And I don't think we need this open at all anymore. Well, yeah, we do. Because we probably want the source to be over there. No, it's fine. This was an easy one. Oh yeah. And that is World 7. I didn't see any other dev commentaries, so we will call it there for today. I'm looking at the clock. I think I might actually want to do one more world. I'm starting to feel tired, but I have a feeling I'm gonna get bored of this game if the series goes on too long, so I'm gonna continue on.
I have promised you eternal life. But know that eternity may only be attained by those who serve a purpose greater than themselves. All else is decay. So it was written in the hidden words before the beginning of time.
Yeah, if you just serve yourself, then everything you do dies when you die. So that's a kind of idea of eternal life can be a metaphor for the things that you do that are beyond yourself and contribute to community and society. So in that sense, we achieve immortality through our kids, through our family and community, through the art that we create, through the tools and machines that we manufacture, through the clothes we create, you know, all the work that we do lives on past us. And there's other ways of thinking about it that are debatably not quite as metaphorical. What am I thinking? I forgot what I was going to say. Maybe it'll come up again. Not anything as simple as religious dogma. It's just if anyone's thinking like, oh, you're talking about consciousness after death by some kind of trusting the literal word of some holy text that was never meant to be taken literally, or worse, some kind of spiritualist guru scammer. No, none of that. But there are, you know, metaphysics is weird and extends far beyond what we have discovered scientifically. Let's just put it that way. There's a serpent in the machine, a creature of lies and blasphemy, perverted by the archive that knows no hope and would plunge the world into eternal darkness to glorify its own despair. I've sworn an oath never to allow it into my heart. One with faith. Yeah, so based on that commentary about Milton and Elohim, one with faith is on Elohim team. LOL! To know me 77. Ever since we moved to the new site, I feel funny. Not in that way, just I feel like I'm about to start laughing at random. It's probably shock, right? An inability to deal with reality? Or maybe it's just that we're working in this insane place with this insane technology on this insane project, and so I feel like a genuine mad scientist. Stand aside, mortals. We'll create life by the power of science. I mentioned this to Alex and she got me a pair of fake glasses. You can't be a mad scientist without glasses, she said. Even Ian Malcolm had glasses. And I pointed at L and I said, life finds a way. Maybe you had to be there. J.E. Harrison, Institute for Applied Nomadics. Any emails sent from this address are to be considered confidential. Sharing or forwarding without permission may result in prosecution by the enraged spirit of Jeff Goldblum. Chatbots. I wonder if this is new. Oh no, this is old. Chatbots are becoming increasingly sophisticated. True, but hardly relevant to this discussion. Are you sure? How do you know that I'm not a bot? Don't be ridiculous. I'm not ridiculous. Honestly, how would you know? Haha, troll. I'm not a troll. Yeah, right. Is there anything I've written so far that could not be written by a bot? I responded to simple insults like ridiculous and troll with very basic negations. And I detected that none of you used proper orthography, so I also avoided capitalization. What's the capital of France? Paris. Even the simplest script could pull that info from the net. What's the capital of Croatia? Zagreb. Okay, she's a bot, lol. I'm not a bot, I'm European. We learn these things in school. I've seen you in this classroom many times. Bots can't participate in discussions. At best, they can interject random comments. Sam's right, stop trolling. Vegan Warrior. Sam is a bot. Where's the first... So Sam just comes in at the end. Yeah, with more sophisticated chatbots these days, it's a lot like if you ever watch clips of Neurosama and her sister Evil Neuro, they could have had this conversation completely without any input. Oh. Cicero. Shall the industrious husbandman then plant trees in the fruit of which he shall never see? And shall not the great man found laws, institutions, and a republic? What does the procreation of children imply, and our care to continue our names and our adoptions, and our scrupulous exactness in drawing up wills and the inscriptions on monuments and panegyric, but that our thoughts run on futurity? So talking about creating things to outlast us? What do you imagine that so many and such great men of our republic who have sacrificed their lives for its good expected, and also participating in projects that began when they were born and continue long after the dead? Do you believe that they thought their names should not continue beyond their lives? None ever encountered death for their country, but under a firm persuasion of immortality. Themistocles might have lived at his ease, so might have Epaminondas, and not to look abroad and among for ancients of instances, so I might myself. But somehow or other, there clings to our minds a certain presage of future ages, and this both exists most firmly and then appears most clearly in men of the loftiest genius and greatest souls. Take away this, and who would be so mad as to spend his life amidst toils and dangers? Oh my goodness. I had to concentrate on reading those sentences. I didn't even hear what they said. Persuasion of immortality. I think it's the idea like, oh, if you could achieve immortality, then why would you do anything? You just while away your time. But what if you spent your eternity poor? Like, you'd have to keep working. Where's the devlogs? Where are they? I want to hear their voices. Maybe we just got through where most of them were. Mobile minefield. Not minefield, mindfield. That was a Vsauce spin-off show called Mindfield. There's a scientist podcast called Mindscape with Sean Carroll, which I listened to for a while and got bored of. Very left-brained.
This is dedicated to the spirit of Bob Rakowski, the programmer behind the development of the simulation module. In the game, he's shown as a determined and optimistic somehow person that believes in humanity and its potential. And his thoughts about teamwork and desire to use somehow unconventional ideas reflect some, in a way, creative and collaborative approach to the problem-solving process. So maybe his quote, when he says like, crazy is what we do best on this planet, maybe this quote actually highlights his belief in human resilience and our species' ability to overcome any challenge. Actually, his spirit and the way of thinking reminds us a lot of how we in Croteam approach our work and what we strive to achieve, what we value. So stuff like, being crazy, being very optimistic, determined, and the teamwork, those are the values that we really, really appreciate and cherish within the Croteam. So we created this secret as a tribute to that type of mindset.
Oh, nice. Just put it in a corner out of the way somewhere. You're like, hey, there should be a secret here. That was a cool reward. And that sounds like a cool guy. It also sounds like he's dead. Did anybody else get that impression? Is he alive? Is he okay? A door too far. Let's see if we can get any more logs. Well, there's more puzzles, so... Oh yeah, let's take this one.
We at Croteam, we're always trying to looking for ways to improve and optimize the game development process. And when you get to the end of finishing the game, that's the time when the most consuming period, but very, very important task at the end of the game production is to test the game, notice and report bugs, and then solve the bugs. And to make this process easier and very efficient, we developed this system that we call the World Bug System, or VBS in short. The testers are playing the game, they kind of spot some bugs, some issue like floating stone or problem with mapping or I don't know, maybe a location of where players could exploit or something like that. And at that moment they're able to press a button, the pin would appear in front of them, and they're able to describe with words what they are seeing, what is the issue is about and stuff like that. So that would get synced to the editor. So on the other side of equation, the level editors, for example, would load the level, would see the list of reported bugs, pins, 3D locations where the bugs were spotted, double click on them, and they would be immediately brought to the location where the reporter actually wrote his description, and they would be able to see, what this issue and bug is about. And they would easily solve the mapping, floating stuff or whatever there was described, and mark the bug as solved. And this process turned out to be a huge help, like making bug reporting and fixing faster and more straightforward and enjoyable for everyone in the team.
It does sound super efficient. So was I in there? Did I see... Was I able to... No. Okay. So that's not gonna work. Or... Oh. Yeah, it's kinda hard to tell where the paths are in this one. I need to open... I think I need to open this next. Well... Do that like this. Oh, here we go. There we go. Alright, now I can take the jammer through. Is that the end? Or is there another... Oh no, there's another door. Oh, hey, one of these. Okay. But you... No, not on top. Right there. Okay. Is this just my second? Okay. I can get through there. Just need to take the jammer... Right, I don't need this jammer here anymore. Okay, I think we're done. I think we're getting through the puzzle. Yeah! And then the receptacle, just a troll, right? No way you're getting lasers around here. I wonder if that bug thing was how they figured out how to, or where to put all the Easter eggs. Because in the original game, at least, I don't, maybe it's still here too, but in the original game you could like get out of the geometry all over the place and you'd find stuff. Where's the exit? Where is it? Here it is. Alright, this side. Oh, now they appear.
There are a lot of different inspirations for the Talos Principle. The game really draws on a huge variety of stories and mythologies and ideas in order to create this kind of tapestry that it presents. So I'm not going to try to list all of them because then you'll be listening to this audio commentary until the end of time. But I will mention a few things that were particularly influential. Of course, there's the King James version of the Bible. This is a very beautiful work. It might not be the best translation, but it is certainly the most accurate translation, rather. But it is the most poetic and beautiful. And there's Milton's Paradise Lost, which kind of depicts, the fall of the angels into hell, and it's a very interesting, kind of ambiguous work. But more than that, actually, it's influenced by someone who was himself influenced very strongly by Milton and was responding to Milton. That's William Blake, and in particular, The Marriage of Heaven and Hell. Even if you just hear the title of that, I think you see the connection, right? Because the story of the Talos Principle is a story in which Milton and Elohim are both necessary, but at the same time, both have to be transcended and become something greater than the sum of their parts, as in a marriage. And Blake's writing also is influential in the idea of Jerusalem and building a new Jerusalem. This is an idea that isn't unique to Blake, but he, did use it in a very particular and famous way. And that then kind of sets us up for Gehenna and particularly for Talos Principle 2.
Isn't this puzzle like, you feel like you're supposed to go all the way around here, but there's actually another way to do it? Hey, another of these. Yeah, William Blake, they actually put some of his poetry in the second one. Yeah, so we go here. So that's open now. The exit is where? Here? Yeah. So if we take any connector now, it will break it. So I believe, yeah, this door is a red herring. So instead of doing that, we want to go this way. Maybe we want the red ones up there. And we don't need this here anymore. Oops. Oh, that doesn't work. Which one goes up here? How do we do it? Oh, maybe nothing goes up here. Oh. Alright, maybe we just use this one. Wait, no. We use this one for red. There we go. Alright. Some fine adjustments. Aha! We've got the 5 puzzlers purples. So now we can go to... Now we can go to the messenger world. Some of these messages that existed when I first came into being have vanished. Others have appeared. How many others like me have wandered these paths? How many thoughts have been lost? I'm still here, Sailor M, Sailor Moon. The sooner you accept that we will all be here forever, the sooner you will find enlightenment. Samsara. This is the first text we've seen from Samsara. Watch that name. It seems we're all here at once, and not at all. Sorry, that's not much help, is it? Can't think of any other way to put it. I am also not paying attention to their versions. If there's more lore, like, the versions... When they're versions, they're different characters, right? Except for Samsara, who has a glitch and remembers all their lives.
There are a lot of different inspirations for the Talos Principle. The game really draws on a huge variety.
Heard that already. Library session, network inaccessible. A symbol principle. Though Stratton himself never used the term, his remark about the inescapable materiality of life, that like the bronze giant Talos, even the most faithful philosopher cannot live without his blood, ultimately became known as the Talos Principle. What seemingly enraged many of his contemporaries and a significant number of later thinkers is the principle's simplicity and unassailability, which according to a fragment found in Miletus, cut through their rhetorical webs which sought to tangle the listener with fanciful words and thoughts of the heavens like Alexander's sword through the Gordian knot. Diogenes Laertius made mention of a dialogue by Anaximander of Chalcedon that expanded greatly on the Talos Principle, but that work remains lost. So, of course, there is a material substrate that is necessary for all the things that happen in the universe. Let's I don't want to pretend like I don't know that or recognize that or think in those terms. But it's not the only layer of reality, right? There's patterns, and patterns can exist substrate independent, right? That's a term, substrate independence, and it's usually used for consciousness. The idea that consciousness could exist in brains. It could exist in computer programs. It could exist in anything that's complicated enough to do the same thing that a brain does, right? And so, in that sense, consciousness is not matter, but it's a pattern that matter is doing. If that's true. We don't know, haven't developed the science of consciousness well enough. But another example of a pattern is a wave, right? You've got water, and the water is rising up and down, and something is moving, but the material of the water is not moving. Energy is moving with the wave, and you can see the pattern, the shape of the wave moving, but the wave itself is not matter. And so there are more things in existence than matter, you know, and presumably waves could exist in other universes that had different kinds of stuff, like not matter or, you know, I don't know, but like, you know, and also, like when you look down at the sub-microscopic level, at the quantum level, there's no matter there anymore. It's not matter, it is fields of the properties of space that ripple like waves and interact with each other. It's not really material anymore. So both science and philosophy go beyond the Talos Principle. The Talos Principle is not a grounding foundational bedrock, but it is very important, but it's not like the foundation of all knowledge and all reality. Post 437 comments. Cheeseman, first! Seriously, Cheeseman, that was the best you could say? LOL! A great snapshot of the human species at its best and at its worst. At its worst? Come on, it's just a comment. I'm not Stalin. Stalin was also a troll commenter. Maybe you should cut out the jokes. This is serious. The most serious thing that's ever happened. Like Sam. I think it's a great reason to joke around. Internet's working less and less. Goodbye, all. Bye. God bless you. Last! Oh, kids these days ruining their internet. In my day, we had serious, intelligent, philosophical discussions on the internet. That reminds me of Ender's Game. How two very intelligent children rose to power by having philosophical arguments on the internet. Seriously, read Ender's Game. It is an extremely good book, but that one part, that one aspect of it. Arcady Journal 77. Officially began work on Archive today. Contributors from every country on Earth while network connections last. Team intimidated by project scope, but working hard. We'll be sharing space with Dren and Sarabai team. Looking forward to meeting them. Arkady Chernyshevsky is another character who keeps coming back. Trevor Percival Donovan. Yeah, that was definitely him. Why did I think it wasn't? Anyway, let's hop in here to this one. Come on, get me up there. So we couldn't read at the moment. Well, we got classical philosophers. The compressed file cannot be accessed. An extensive collection of works by the ancient philosophers of Greece and Rome, annotated. Compression algorithm not available in system L0. First note of L0. Progress report. Alexandra Drennan. Hi all. As per the last meeting, we're going with an existing game engine for the simulation. This gives us a whole slew of advantages. After some back and forth, all the relevant documents are attached. They used the Serious Sam game engine. But how does that square with Elohim being like a dungeon master, creating the world from words? Maybe the simulation... I'm thinking like a Mario Maker kind of thing, like obviously there's code. And so the code like sets up that you can make a simulation, and then the words are like putting the Mario Maker elements in, or Game Maker if you're of the game creation persuasion. And then, that's like the layer of interface Elohim has with the word creation. Bichromatic entanglement. Two color knot tying. Oh, I remember this puzzle took me a long time. I bet it'd be much faster now. go around. And we need... Oh, so close I can taste it! Right, so that's clearly not how we start. So this needs to stay open. So that we have this. And that's the obvious thing you want to do. Now you open... So let's move these. So that this is over... Ah! Was this really... It opens and now we don't have to take this one. Oh. Never mind. I have to leave this here for a moment. As we pitch this up to there as well. And now, we can take this one. And this has to be higher so the laser can go over the other one. Yeah! I think I spent like an hour on this one in my first playthrough. Because I didn't have 50 hours of lasers in practice. And I think that's this world down! I think next time we will go to World 5 in the Messenger world. And, hey, what's up? Hello again. Would you like to take a few moments to complete a short user satisfaction survey regarding the certification program you recently undertook? Sure. I think I'm tempted to say no just to be a troll, but I feel like saying no would mean we don't get to do it. Based on the analysis of your behavior, since I think you are dissatisfied with the result of the certification program, how would you rate the accuracy of its result out of 5? Spoil the survey. I'm sorry, that response makes no sense. What best describes the reason for your investment in the certification program's outcome? Why does being a person matter to you? I want network access. It's the truth. I want to find out if I am one. Persons matter in ways other things don't. Wait, we're having a conversation now? Terminate. I like that this option exists. I'm not going to do it. So I want network access, just very pragmatic. Like, you need to be a person to have this? Okay, I'm a person. Give me it. It's the truth. Persons matter in ways other things don't. So it's the truth. That is the mentality that believing and convincing other people to believe true things is inherently good, which I don't actually subscribe to. I think that truth isn't inherently good. It's a tool that we can use for good things. If you believe truth, most of the time, not always, but much of the time, you are more effective at doing whatever it is you're trying to do. You are wiser, you are, truth helps very much with those things. Not always, again, but lots of the time. So the truth isn't good just because it's truth, it's good because you can do good things with it. That's my belief. I want to find out if I am a person. Persons matter in ways other things don't. I like all these options. Wait, we're having a conversation now? Yes. Do keep up with this or this will be a terribly slow process. Now, would you like to participate properly in the survey? What best describes the reason for your investment in the certification program's outcome? I'll go with this one. Persons matter in ways other things don't. But this begs the question, matter to whom? I'll try to remember that. In fact, I'm going to help you. This is what I'm here for. Your problem, if I may, is that you don't know the first thing about anything, including what a person is. Your prospects are therefore poor. Do you even know where you are? And Milton is such a fun character. Yeah, so the idea of mattering it has to matter to someone or to something, or for some purpose. So simply mattering in the void as mattering in principle, that doesn't really make sense, I think. And if you disagree, that's totally fine. Disclaimer about everything, all the philosophy that I say, all the claims I make, these are just my views and opinions, and if you think differently, that is perfectly okay. After all, one of my strongest values is diversity. And so I'm very happy to live in a world where people like you believe different things than I do. Where are you? A virtual reality theme park? A fever dream? Some mad experiment? The end of the world? Hell? Could be anywhere. Theme park. Oh dear, no. I think we'd best start from scratch. What do you know? I know none of this is real. I know you exist. I know what century it is. I know I exist. I know 2 + 2 = 4. I know I'm not on Earth. Well, let's start with, I mean, this would be kind of funny. I don't want to just pick one of these. I know 2 + 2 = 4. This could be a running joke. This would be a rare opportunity to see this running joke through, so I'm gonna do it. I suppose so. Even if you were dreaming, you could be certain of that. Oh, I thought he was gonna make fun of me for not getting it right. Dang it. If I were you, I wouldn't believe a darn thing in this place aside from that solitary fact. No, if you're dreaming, you could be totally convinced that 2 + 2 = 5. And it would make perfect sense. You know, that's the main argument against the idea of Boltzmann brains. So a Boltzmann brain is the idea that if the universe is randomly moving particles for eternity, then there will be, just by sheer probability, after 10 to the power of a Google years or whatever, particles will combine together randomly to make a brain, and that brain would perceive itself to have been living exactly like you. So then the argument goes, if time is infinite and infinite things can happen, then it is much more likely for Boltzmann brains to exist than it is for universes to exist. So therefore, you are probably a Boltzmann brain. And the counter argument goes, if you are a Boltzmann brain, then, or the counter argument goes, if you are a Boltzmann brain, then your concept of logic just fluctuated into existence, and you can't trust it. So, if you were a Boltzmann brain, you could not trust the idea that Boltzmann brains exist, because that requires your logic to be valid. And so therefore, you're probably not a Boltzmann brain. So it's like either Boltzmann brains are possible and you're not one, or Boltzmann brains, or you are a Boltzmann brain, but it's logically impossible for them to exist. And the only one of those that's consistent is they're possible, but you are not one. And then the argument continues that goes, well, that's inconsistent with the argument that Boltzmann brains should exist, therefore there must be some principle that means they don't exist. Alright, on reflection, it seems to me that we are no closer to resolving your problem. Perhaps we need more data. What makes you think you're a person? I'm alive, I feel, I'm conscious. I'm having this conversation with you. I mean, something like a frog could say that. The same thing that makes you think you are. I don't see how I can convince you. I think I picked this one last time. Same thing that makes you think you are. Checking memory. I don't recall making any such claim, but I can forgive the presumption. The problem with people, if I may be so bold, is that you're all convinced you're people from the inside, but there's no cast iron way to confirm as much from the outside. I'm going to process this and send you a notification when I'm able to assist you further. Terminating support session. Done. Resuming library archive session. Alright. Yeah, I think it's safe to assume that all humans are people. We've been assuming that for tens, hundreds of thousands of years, and we can continue to assume that until the end of the universe. Now what about other things being well, conscious, people, or, you know, some, you know, we tend to think of like humans as like a tier above animals, and animals like a tier above plants, but that hierarchy is a human concept. We don't know that for sure, like, not the, that structuring of like us above animals is something that we created. We are different from other animals in the way that we think and the way that we construct narratives. But that doesn't mean we're like above them. It just means that we are our own thing, right? And it could be that perhaps some other animals are also their own thing in their own way. But probably most species are their own thing in their own way. But then questions come up, and I'll talk about this more, I think, in the desert one when we talk about consciousness. But like, what about patterns outside of brains? What about lots of connected, networked information? Like, if we think that consciousness in the brain is the information patterns making models of itself and of the world or whatnot, something like that, then who is to say that other patterns outside of brains that do similar things aren't conscious also? And that's something, I mean, we don't have any kind of science suggesting it is, but we also don't have any kind of science suggesting it isn't. And there is a truth to the matter of what systems count as consciousness, and that truth is true now, even though we don't know it scientifically. And that is kind of terrifying and amazing to think about. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode of Talos Principle. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.